The flat cars of lumber you see on Southern United Railroad freight trains comes from the sawmill in Denville. The Denville and Western Narrow Gauge Railroad has a branch line that runs up to where the logs are cut. The tracks on the line are rough and the curves are tight, so only geared locomotives are used to travel the line. These types of locomotives use what's called a reduction gearing. The Denville and Western has several types. There's Eddie, who's a shade locomotive, Hector, a Heistler locomotive, Clarence, a Climax, and a very rare kind called a Dunkirk, which is named Duke. Most of the time, they push their trains up to the logging site, but sometimes they'll pull them. Once they arrive, their logs are loaded by a steam log loader, whose name is Dill. When the geared engines arrive, they push their empty flat cars past Dill, and then pull them back one by one so they're loaded. They're then taken down to the sawmill where they're cut into lumber, loaded on the standard gauge trains, and taken to wherever they are needed. One day, when Duke arrived to get his logs loaded, he noticed that Dill looked a little sad. While he was having a rest before heading back to Denville, he decided to find out why. "What's the matter, Dill?" asked Duke. "You don't seem very cheerful like you normally are." "I'm sorry," said Dill sadly, but... "Come on now," said Duke. "I'm your friend. Out with it." "Thanksgiving's coming up." "Why on earth would you be upset about Thanksgiving?" asked Duke. "It's because I'm left here all alone. All the loggers have their families. My operator has his family. And you're down there with the other engines. I'm always stuck up here." Duke was about to say something, but his driver cut him off. "Come on, Duke. We have to head back down to the station." "See you later, Dill," Duke called. "Yeah, see you later," Dill said sadly. After dropping off his log cars, Duke went to the shed to talk to Clarence and Eddie about it. "I feel bad that we've never noticed until now," sighed Eddie. "Well, maybe he just held it in all this time, and now it's just finally getting to him," suggested Clarence. "But I wish there was something we could do for him," Duke puffed. "Why don't you invite him to have Thanksgiving with us at the sheds?" suggested Sean. "You know, Sean," said Duke, "that's a great idea. The whole logging crew would be together for Thanksgiving." "Not all of us. Hector's in for overhaul," reminded Eddie. "The day before Thanksgiving, we could just take him over to see Hector really quick," said Clarence. The following day, Eddie arrived at the logging camp smiling from ear to ear. "Guess what, Dill?" he called. "What?" Dill replied, still feeling down. "We spoke to Mr. Mark, and he gave the okay for you to spend Thanksgiving with us." Dill's sadness quickly disappeared. "Really?" he said excitedly. "I can have Thanksgiving with all of you?" "Yes," Eddie replied. "You just have to come down here the day before." "I'll be there," smiled Dill. It seemed like forever, but the day before Thanksgiving finally arrived. "Are you ready, Dill?" said his driver. "Yes, I am," replied Dill, and they puffed away. Dill was enjoying his run. He rarely ever ventured out of the logging camp. As they neared the main line, they saw some rocks had fallen onto the tracks. "Well, I guess we're not going any further today," said his driver sadly. "But I am a crane," Dill said. "Can't I just move it myself?" "You probably could, but you don't have the type of equipment to move rocks. We're going to have to go back to the logging camp." Dill decided to accept defeat. "Okay," he sighed, and they reversed back up the line. Meanwhile, the geared engines were finishing up their work when a sawmill manager arrived and told them the bad news. "That's a crying shame," grumbled Duke. "We did all this for Dill, only for him to miss Thanksgiving anyway due to a stupid rock slide. He doesn't have to, Clarence said with determination, and Puck let out another word. Where are you going? Called Eddie, but Clarence didn't reply. Leonard, wake up, called Clarence. I have a very important task for you. Soon Clarence was rushing as fast as he could up the line to the rock slide with Leonard on a flat car. When they reached the logging branch, Leonard got to work. Once the line was clear, he got back on the flat car and they headed toward the logging camp. Dill was sitting alone sadly when he heard a whistle. That's Clarence, he exclaimed. We're not gonna let you miss Thanksgiving, Clarence cried. Soon Dill was smiling again. They were coupled together and headed down the branch line. Eddie and Duke were happy to see Clarence puff in with Dill behind them. Dill, you've made it, Duke said happily. Well, if it wasn't for Clarence and Leonard, I wouldn't have made it, Dill replied. After taking Dill to see Hector at the works, they gathered around at the sheds. Dill had a good time getting to know all the conventional engines that he had never met before. The next morning was Thanksgiving Day, and all the railroads were closed, so the engines sat around the entire day, telling stories and saying what they were thankful for. Without even being there, I know what Dill was thankful for. He was thankful for having such good friends in the geared locomotives.